My name's Ashley Height. I'm the Systems and Discovery Librarian here at Waters Library. You can contact me and my email address is down here. Right now it's still at tamuc.edu. However, that's probably going to change. Any questions that you have about this presentation or about Adobe Illustrator, you can contact me. Any Adobe app really, you can contact me, and if I don't know, I'll find the person who does know. This workshop is going to introduce the basic Illustrator tools that you will use for nearly any project that you work on. And also, I'm going to introduce the idea of what the Adobe library is and how to use Adobe Color and Adobe Stock. So the first thing that you'll need to do when you're just getting started is you need to sign into Adobe Creative Cloud. It's really easy to do. You just go to adobe.com. You'll see a screen that kind of looks like this one here, and then you'll hit sign in, and then you will put in your email address. And then this will lead to another option where you'll put in that you're with a school, and then you'll use your single sign-on. So if you're a student, you use your CWID and your password. If you are faculty staff, you'll use your AD login and password. If you have any problems with signing in, you can contact Site and they can help you with sign-in issues. You can contact them at helpdesk@tmuc.edu, or you can call them an extension 6000 if you're on campus. This is what your home screen will look kind of like once you do get signed in. I don't think it'll say welcome Ashley, but it'll have your name on there, and it'll have different apps. If you've already opened some apps, downloaded some apps to your computer, they'll be here. If not, you can go here to apps, and then you can go to which one that you would like to download to your workstation. For this one, we're doing Adobe Illustrator, which looks like this. And that is all there is to getting into Illustrators. Let's get started. Today, just to introduce the basic tools, I'm going to create a very simple social media post. So what this is going to be an Instagram story that just says Happy Thanksgiving from the library. So what you're going to do, you're going to open up Illustrator. This is what it'll look like. It'll have, if you've used it before, it'll have your most recent projects down here, your most recent files. You can tell I've been practicing a lot for this workshop, but if not, this will be blank down here and you'll just see this. So we're going to go to this big blue button here that says New File. And this will take us to this screen. Yours might look different because I've used Illustrator quite a bit. It has some presets in here that yours may or may not have. The two different documents that you'll use the most are either going to be web-based or print. Once it goes to web. Web is just anything that's going to be on your screen, and the major difference is that it usually defaults to pixels, although that can be changed. And the color mode is RGB for the lights, so that it's not going to be printed out. But for print, it'll have different sizes already preset. You can change all of them. You can customize this as much as you would like. The print is going to default to points, but you can change that. Say you want to do a flyer that's on an 8.5 by 11, just change that, and then you know for sure you're on 8.5 by 11. Also, you can change these to whatever you want. Say you want a big 11 by 11 square, you can do that as well. However, doing that made that open. I'm going to go back here. So with print, it's going to default color mode as CMYK, which is for your ink. So that's the major difference. This is going to be an Instagram story post, so it's going to be web. Now, the story, it takes up the entire screen on your mobile device. And so I wasn't sure of what the pixels were for that. So I just Googled it and it told me it was 1080 by 1920. And that is already a preset here in Illustrator. The only thing is it's in portrait, or it's in landscape mode. We want it in portrait mode. So we're just going to change it, and then it switched those up for us. And then hit create. So this brings us to our screen where we can now work on our project. So your workspace is probably going to look different than this when you first sign in. I suggest if you go to Window and then Workspace, probably Essentials is a good place to start. And then you can customize it if you want, and you can save your workspace and you can call it, my workspace. And then it'll always look like how you need it to look when you're working on your projects. And if you ever get off, you can always go back, to Essentials or one of these, depending on what you're working on. If you have any questions about the workspace, you can always send me an email. We'll work on that. Over here is the toolbar. And there's several that are here. You can also edit these of what you want showing, what you don't want showing, because if you go down here to this dot dot dot, there are several other options for tools. There are a lot of options. And then some of the options have even more options that are hiding underneath them or within them. Illustrator is one of those programs where you can do way more than what you could probably ever learn. You're just limited by your creativity and your knowledge of how Illustrator works. Because if you can think of it, Illustrator can probably create it. One of the tools you'll use a lot is the selection tool. Also, there's a keyboard shortcut for it, and that's V. Using keyboard shortcuts in Illustrator is really helpful when working on your projects because it's just a lot faster when you're working here to just change between your different tools by using keyboard shortcuts. The selection tool is the one you'll use the most. It's kind of your default. It's a black arrow. This one is your direct selection tool. It's a white arrow. It's also the A key on your keyboard. So if I hit the V key, that is selection tool. If I hit the A key, I'm back to direct selection. They do slightly different things. And we're going to start first using selection, and then I'll show you some things that the direct selection tool can do that's different. Over here, we have the rectangle tool. Now, it's one of those ones that's hiding other tools underneath it. Any of them that have this little triangle in the bottom, there's more tools there. So I'm just going to click my mouse and hold it, and then I have these other options. I can create an ellipse, a polygon, a star, or a line from here. But we're going to start with rectangle. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to click and drag, and then I can create a rectangle to whatever size and dimension that I'm looking for. Now, because I have smart guides on, I can use it to make a perfect square. As soon as that diagonal line comes up, I know that's a perfect square. However, there's an easier way to do it from the very beginning. So if I hold the shift key and click my mouse and hold and drag it, no matter how large or small I make it, it's always going to be a perfect square. So that's how you get a square out of the rectangle tool, but we don't need that right now. So this rectangle, I'm going to use this because I want this to be the background of my Instagram post. Since my smart guides are on, I can kind of get to the right size what I want. Mine is set to default to a white fill and a black stroke. So the stroke is this outline going around it, and I'll make it larger so you can see. That's what the stroke is. You can tell, you can go up and down. You can make this as big or as large as you'd like. But right now we don't really need a stroke on this. So I'm going to click right here. And then this will give me options. I can change the color of the stroke, or I can get rid of it by hitting none, or I can also on my keyboard hit the / button, and that will change it to none. If I want this rectangle to be a color, I can go here and I can look at the preset swatches and see if any of these are a color that I would like to use for my project. I can also go here into the color mixer and I could put in the RGB, make a specific color that way, or if I have the hex code, I can put it here, or I can use the eyedropper tool and kind of, okay, how about lime green? And then I can use this to kind of come up with a color. However, there's another way, and that is to load more swatches into your swatch panel. One way that I like to do it is to use my library. So up here, the panel here, I have properties, layers, libraries is right here. My library has colors and it has graphics and it has a template that I use the most often. You can also put fonts in here and other different elements that you use in your projects that your library can show up in different apps across Adobe. So if I go to Adobe Express, I'm able to access the things that I have saved to my library. If I go to Photoshop, same thing. So using a library is really, really handy when it comes to using Adobe products. So one thing that I would like to do is add a new color theme for this Instagram post. Since it's a Thanksgiving post, I need some Thanksgiving colors is what I decide. Something fall, kind of autumnal. I'm going to go back. If you go to color.adobe.com/explore, and there's different things that you can do on here. There's a lot of different really neat things that you can do in color.adobe.com. I would suggest playing with it when you have some time. There's a lot in here that you can do, but for now, we're just going to explore. I want a color theme that says Thanksgiving, that says fall. I'm going to put in a search term, and this will bring up some that it thinks that the colors that I might be able to use for a Thanksgiving project. Some have a lot of contrast in them. Some don't as much. Some, I'm not sure how this one is Thanksgiving, but they have tagged it as such. It's really interesting to see what colors they've put together that look good together that could probably go in a project together. Earlier when I was looking, I saw this theme right here and I kind of liked it. It's got a light color, it's got a really dark color, and then some colors in the middle. I'm going to add this to my library. So one way is I can open this and I can see these different swatches a little larger and say, yeah, I like these. And I'm going to go right here to add to library. And then it is going to download and say theme successfully added to your library. I'm going to go back into Illustrator. That theme was called Thanksgiving cookies. See, now I have two because I already had it in there. So this is the new one that I just brought in. This is the one that we had. Probably don't need that anymore. One way is I can use the eyedropper tool and I can use these colors to change the color of my rectangle because it is selected right now. So I could go ahead and change it. However, I want to use these colors over and over. So I'm going to add them to my swatches panel. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to say add theme to swatches. If I go back out to my properties panel, go to fill, and here is my color theme right here, my Thanksgiving cookies color theme. I'm going to choose this dark color as the background. So now I have a background set of where I can put in my happy Thanksgiving message. This probably isn't going to change much, and I'm going to put things on top of it. I'm going to go ahead and lock it into place so that when I add something on top of it, I don't actually move this around while I'm working on other things. Over here in a panel, there's a layers panel. You can see right here, it says layer 1, and it just has this rectangle on it. I'm going to go ahead and lock it. Right here in this empty space, you kind of have to just know that that's where that is. You can toggle and lock it and see how now I can't do anything to it. It's just locked into place. There's also a keyboard shortcut, which is Control-2. That also locked it into place. I can rename my layer, so we can say background. And now I just kind of know what this is when I'm looking at my layers. Now for this project, I'm just going to have 2 layers, but some projects you'll want several layers for what you're creating. So what I'm going to do is add another one that I can work in that's not locked. I'm going to go down here and there's a create new layer. And now my layer 2 is where I'm going to work. This is hypothetically a post from Waters Library. So what I would like to do is add our branding. I'd like to add a branding element to it. So I have a logo, and that's why I left this white up top. Actually, it's not white. It looks white, but it's actually transparent. There's nothing here. The way that you can tell is if you hit Control-Shift-D, you can see that this is transparent. I'm going to add another rectangle up here, put that right there. I'm going to go ahead and change the color and see if I make it white. See, it looks the same, but if I go back into my transparency mode, I can now see that this square or this rectangle is white instead of transparent. So that's how you can tell really quick if it's white or is it transparent. I'm going to go back to my selection tool by hitting V. I'm going to go ahead and lock that. I have a saved logo for the library in my library for Waters Library, and it's down here in the graphics. It's right here. All I'm going to do is click and drag out of my library, and then I'm going to place it about where I think it could go and look okay. You can leave it linked or you can embed it. I'm going to go ahead and embed it. There's reasons for leaving it different ways, kind of just based on what you're doing and what you need it for, but that's something for another day. But now I can move this. I can also change the size of it. So I'm going to take this anchor and I'm going to pull, and as you can tell, it'll change the dimensions too. And so now it kind of looks like this. It's a little squashed and weird looking. I'm like, I've messed up. I want to go back to where it was. So I just hit Control-Z. And now it's back where it was before I did that. Now, if I want to make it larger or smaller and keep the dimensions, I just hit Shift, keep holding Shift, click, and then drag. And now it'll keep the dimensions. So you can do either or. I'm going to leave that right there. The next thing that I'd like to show you is to use the type tool back here in our toolbar. This right here is the type tool. You also can hit the T on your keyboard. It's one of the keyboard shortcuts that actually makes a lot of sense. T for type. I just clicked, and as you can tell, it'll kind of default to a really small font. You can change that default in settings at any time to where you use a certain font size or font, then you can say, hey, this is what I want it to always be. Now, this is really small. I can go ahead and make it larger so I can see it just like that, because we know it's going to be larger. Or I can hold the Alt key on my keyboard and then scroll with the mouse, and I'm going to zoom. I can zoom in just like that. Also, if I'm here and I don't really like where I'm working right here, I want to kind of move around on the screen, move this to a different spot, not necessarily zoom in or zoom out. I can hold the space bar. That'll give me, oh, except I was in type. I can hold the space bar. That gives me this little hand, and I can move around like that. Also, if I get way off, I don't know where I am because there's all this gray space that you can work in. You can work in this space and then bring it onto your artboard, which this right here is your artboard. You can hit Control-0 and it'll put things back into place. I am going to write Happy Thanksgiving here at the top, and I kind of wanted a nice script. University has 3 fonts that they have approved that they use the most for branding purposes, and the one that is script is called Voltage. I used Adobe fonts to bring this into my fonts where it's always there. It didn't come that way in the beginning. So I went to find more. I put in Voltage, and then I clicked the little cloud button that brought it into this. So it's always right here. I'm going to click on that. Here is something that I always do. Whenever I get here and I've typed something out, I'm in my type tool and I want to go back to the selection tool. If you remember, the keyboard shortcut for the selection tool is V. However, if you hit the V key out of habit, you are just going to type a V, and I do this a lot. So this is the time where you actually have to go up here and click on it. I can move this and make it larger and smaller. For sure, we need to change the color because that dark font on a dark background is not accessible. We can't really read it. So over here in my properties panel, just like before, under appearance, there's going to be fill. I'm going to go ahead and click that. Now I can put a stroke on it. I can outline it, kind of something we can sort of see. So you can see, and then I can make that as large or as small as I want. Just like before, I don't think we need a stroke. So I am just going to hit the / key, and but I had it on fill. Sorry about that. There we go. I'm going to go none. There we go. This looks about centered. However, I'm not for sure that it is centered. There's different ways to center it on your artboard, but one easy way is to just make sure that it's selected with your selection tool. Go to Object, Align, Horizontal, Align, Center, and that'll put it right in the middle for you. So a while ago, we used the type tool to write this, and all I did was click and it put in Lorem Ipsum, and then I could move that around and make it larger, smaller. The font moved with it. There is another way to use the type tool, and that is to draw essentially like a text box. So I'm going to go back here, and what I'm going to do is click and drag. And now I have what kind of looks like a text box, just like you're used to using in Word or other programs like that. Now I'm going to go ahead and change this font. Another university font is a good sans serif font is this Den 2014. Get a little bold. There we go. Decided to make this post to tell people that the library will be closed. Okay, so I'm just going to hit Control-A to select all, and then I'm going to go over here back to my properties panel, and there's all these different options that I can use. I can change the font again. Right now I have it on bold, but say I want to go a little less bold, I'm going to go dimmy. I can change it line by line too. I don't have to do all of it. I do want it to be centered in the text box, so I'm going to go ahead and put that there. I can center it vertically as well, but I'm going to leave it like this. So one thing is this text is a little small. The font needs to be larger. You can go up here where I change the font, I can change the size too. And I can make it larger by clicking on one of these preset ones, or I can type in what I want. Let's say I want it to be 80. And then I can use the up down keys to go one by one, like that. Or I can hold shift and use the up down keys to go by tens. So it's kind of a little bit of a shortcut there. Let's say, kind of want this big. It's kind of more the whole point of the post. So I'm going to go ahead and make that smaller. And again, I want it centered on my background horizontally. So I'm just gonna make sure it's selected with the selection tool, go to Object, Align, Horizontal Align Center. It moved it over for me. And again, there's different ways to do that. That one is just, it's kind of an easy way to remember. So another tool that I want to show you over here is the curvature tool. It's very similar to the pen tool, but it's slightly different. It is pretty easy to use. So that's why I started with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select it and then I'm just going to click and then let go, click again and see it'll make me a curve by barely doing anything. Now here I'm at the end, I want to go down and so I want a right angle. So I'm going to double click and now I've gotten a straight line. So I'm going to double click, and then just finish it just like that. It's already filled with no stroke from up here, kind of remembered those settings. Right now I have the selection tool and I can move this object. I can make it larger, I can make it smaller. There's different things that I can do with the selection tool. However, we're going to go to the direct selection tool, which is the keyboard shortcut A. Now I can do even more with it. So now you can see all these individual anchors. If I click on them, now I have handles and I could make this curve look however I want it. I can also move them in a completely different place and make it look the way that I really want it to look. One thing that's pretty neat about this is I don't have to only use these anchors. I can add and take away anchors. So say I don't want this one right here. I can go up here to my pen tool. It's the easiest one to use for this, I believe. So right here, if you can see there's like a little star beside it, it's going to change. As soon as I get to an anchor, it's going to change to a minus sign and I can get rid of it. When it's a plus sign, because I'm on the path, it'll add. So I can add and I can take away. It's really cool, some of the things that you can do. So this was just to kind of add another element and to show you how to use the curvature tool. It doesn't have to look like anything specifically. I should probably have told you from the beginning, I'm not an artist at all. But anyway, so now I have just a little design down here and learned how to use those two tools just to add a little something extra. Earlier, when I was preparing, I actually going to change the color of that. Make that green. There we go. Earlier, I downloaded this artwork of this pumpkin to my library. So I did that by going to stock.adobe.com. And here, because of our Creative Cloud license, we can license almost every single stock image that you see. Some videos we can't get, or kind of many of the videos actually, but the images we can. So it's really easy to use. I'm just going to put in fall leaves. So what this does is it's going to bring up everything that it has in stock that is tagged with fall leaves, including some photos. So most of your photo images are going to be raster files. There's two different main types of image files. Raster files are made of pixels, and so they're really good for storing and displaying photographs. However, they are resolution dependent and scaling them can cause them to pixelate. If you ever see a photo that's really blurry, that's why it's based on pixels and they're hard to scale. The other type of image file that is used most often is a vector file. Vector files are, instead of being made with pixels, they're made with math. I'm not going to lie, I'm not exactly sure how that works. Just it's made with math and someone told me that and I was like, that's all I need to know. And so it always appears smooth. It's very scalable. You can scale it up as large as you want, as small as you want, and it doesn't get that pixelated look. It doesn't give you the really crisp, realistic photograph look. So that's why there's a difference. Vectors are great for graphic design and for logos and different things like that. I had already come in here and found a couple of vectors that I liked. I'm going to go ahead from my library. If you remember, I'm just going to click, keep holding, drag, and I'm going to put this pumpkin about there. And again, you can either leave it linked or you can embed it, and it kind of depends on what you need it for. You can use my smart guide. If you saw that, that put it in the middle for me is what that smart guide, that pink line is telling me. Okay, so there's two more tools that I want to show you before we end for the day. And that is, I want to create a couple of things to put in here, a couple of design elements. And I thought maybe a leaf would be nice. So under here in the toolbar, there's the paintbrush. You click and hold. Right here is the pencil tool. Remember when I was telling you that in the tools, there's tools hiding under tools and things hiding under that? Well, this is one of them, the pencil tool. If you double click it, there are different options depending on what you need and how you like to use it. You can set this to however you want, but I did want to show you the fidelity and how that is different. So I'm going to take the fidelity all the way down to accurate. Go ahead, go here, go ahead and turn a stroke on, make it so that we can see it. So again, I turn the fidelity all the way down to accurate. So what it's going to do is how I move the mouse is what it's going to draw. Do a little leaf. Here's the stem. And there's the leaf part. That's what that looks like. So if I double click this again, there's different options I can pick here along the way. But if I go completely smooth, it is going to make me look like I can actually sort of draw. So I'm going to show you the difference. Here's the stem. And there's that. So if you can tell, that's the difference in them. So we don't need this one. It's not very cute. Now, some people don't need it. They're very good at drawing, very good at using the trackpad or the mouse to draw. They don't need it. I need it. I'm not good at drawing. One last tool, and this one was just for fun. May not use it very often, but I like to use it for leaves especially. So if you go here in your toolbar, there is the width tool. I'm going to click that. What it's going to do is it's going to widen a certain part of a stroke wherever I click. So if I click kind of in the middle and I'm holding the cursor down and then like that, and I can put these wherever I want. I can play with it, to make it look how I want. But if you can see, it gives me some width and then it tapers to the ends like that. Kind of looks a little cuter. Right now, these are all different elements. I'm going to group them. We go ahead and scale this down. It is going to scale a stroke. There's a way to keep that from doing that, and that's here under options and scale corners, scale strokes. You can turn that off and it'll keep the same scale for the stroke, which is sometimes you need that. Maybe like one more. So I'm just gonna Control C, Control V to copy and paste it. If you just use Control V, it always pastes it right in the middle of what your screen, not necessarily the artboard, but wherever you are on the screen. There you go. There is a little Instagram story post using Illustrator. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to questions. Does anybody have any questions? You can unmute yourself if you want. Anderson, was there anything in the chat?
There is none at this time.
Well, if no one has any questions, I'm going to go ahead and end for the day. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate you being here. If you need to contact me, here is my information again, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming.